What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and today we continue on with our top 5 fountain pens in such and such range. And today is mid-range. So that to me means between $100 and, well, $75 and like $200. Most of mine are in the mid ones. Yes, in case you're wondering, I am filming this directly after I filmed the beginner one. So yes, I'm wearing the same thing. Yes, the frame is basically identical because, well, I stopped one and I'm starting the next one. Why? Because I'm so stoked about this category. This category is probably my favorite because I think it's the most approachable to people who've been in the fountain pen hobby for a little while, and I think it's where most people tend to stay. Not many people will continue on into the next and the next and the next fountain pen group. This is, I think, the biggest category of fountain pens. So that said, I'm only going to be talking about 5. There are many, many more pens that would fit in this range, which I'm interested to see what your guys' recommendations would be down below. But these are mine. So starting off with a classic, one that I've had my pen for a very, very long time. I am never going to get rid of it, and that is the Lamy 2000. So, as always, pricing is in US dollars. Pricing is basic retail pricing. Given sales and a little bit of research, you could potentially get these at a very even lower cost, but for sake of ease, I just post basically the general retail pricing in US dollars. So the Lamy 2000 is $175. This is a beautiful pen. Once again, I've done reviews of all of what I'm going to talk about today, so check the channel for those if you want detailed reviews of them. You can also check out my Instagram, which is just Pens and Tea, and I post pictures and thoughts about these quite often. This pen is amazing. It is in a museum for a reason. It is so basic, but yet not basic at all. The Macrolon is amazing. I love the way that this pen feels, the slight texture of it, the warmth of it, you know, the crisp clip. Say that 10 times fast. I love the fact that it is a snap cap. It is one of the very few snap caps that I actually have. Ooh, that is such a good sound. I love the design of the hooded nib, which is funny because typically I prefer larger nibs, but for whatever reason, I'm not mad at the Lamy 2000. It is a piston fill mechanism here, so you get a ton of ink. It's so smooth, and you can take it apart to clean it. So there's really nothing bad that I can say about this fountain pen. I really can't. I love the fact that when it absorbs like the oils from your hands, it almost keeps it like looking like new. Sometimes when I don't use this for a while, the blacks don't seem as black to me, and then you start using it and you start putting like the oils on your hands on it, and it just sort of like freshens it up a little. And I really love this pen. It's a pretty wet writer. I have a medium nib on this, and I would recommend it to anyone. It's very smooth and I love it. So moving on from the Lamy 2000, we're gonna go polar opposite. So we have a piston fill German nib, writes fairly wide. We're going to go to a cartridge filled Japanese pen that writes a little narrower, and that is the Platinum Century 3776. What's great about these pens is that they have a slip and seal cap on the inside, which means you can keep them inked up for, well, I mean, Platinum says like multiple years, but I mean, I've only done a few months and it's always worked perfectly, which is great. I clearly have 4. I have a fine, medium, broad, and coarse nib that I've had done into an architect grind. They're fairly inexpensive. So again, retail wise, they're $176, but you can certainly find them for considerably less money. And I love these pens. They fit really nicely in my hands. They are made of plastic, but they're pretty plastic, which I mean, aren't all fountain pens basically made out of pretty plastic for the most part. Don't chew me alive for that one, but I really dig them. I love the fact that you can keep them inked up forever. You don't have to worry about it. I love the fact that it is a cartridge converter so that I don't have to hang on to the same ink for so long. I can kind of flip and go really, really quickly. The nibs I think are understated but beautiful. And yeah, they just fit perfectly in my hand. They are a little bit toothy when you go to the fine or medium. I've never used their extra fine or ultra extra fine, so I can't speak to that, but I know the fine in particular is a little bit toothy, but it writes very fine. A fine nib in a Platinum Century, because it is a Japanese pen, will write more like a medium nib in any other Western brand. But once you get up to the mediums, and especially the broads and all that, it writes all the same. There's really no difference between Japanese pens and any other pen. So I really, really dig these. I like the feel of them. I like the basic look of them. And I appreciate the simplicity of the build. So really, really dig those. And like I said, because you can kind of find them slightly cheaper elsewhere, you can get a few of them. Okay, moving on to the next fountain pen, which is going to be the Pilot Custom 74 fountain pen. This one I recommend because I really like Pilot pens. I believe there's a Pilot in almost every category that I'm going to be talking about and have already talked about. The 74 is a really nice sort of intro into Pilot's gold nibs. So it's a little on the smaller side. It's going to be a little bit smaller than a Platinum Century 3776 and a little bit smaller than the Lamy 2000. The nib is a Pilot number 5 nib, so if you're familiar at all with Pilot nibs, that'll give you an idea. That said, even though it's a slightly smaller pen, it's still a mighty pen. So it has a Pilot Con 70 that it comes with, which is notoriously a little bit difficult to clean because it is a push, like a push button converter. But you can swap it out with any other Pilot converter that you have, be that the 40 or 50 or whatever you want. The 20, you can basically put whatever Pilot one you want in there. So whichever one you prefer, you're good to go. The nibs write fantastically, very, very smooth. Again, because it is a Japanese brand, if you get a like fine or extra fine, it will write finer than, you know, if you had a Pelican fine, for example, that will write much broader than the Japanese kind. They are appropriately wet, I would say. Again, for those of you that know me, I say this in basically every video, but I like a fire hose for a fountain pen. And this one I think is appropriately wet for the vast majority of people. I like the fact that it's a little bit smaller so you can kind of hide it away. You can get multiple different colors, anything from like a classic like smoke black, you can get a clear, you can get red. They actually just came out with 2 new colors, which is the first time that they've come out with a new color in quite some time. So I definitely recommend that one. And again, swap out that converter for anything. Yeah, so the fourth in the list, again, these are just 5, they're not like rated 1, 2 to whatever's, is, speaking of Pelican, the Pelican M200. This is a steel nib pen, all the rest have been gold thus far, but it writes like a flippin' dream. I've had many Pelican pens now, many Pelican pens, and they all write fantastically. They're all piston fill, and Pelican is known for having very smooth pistons. It just, ooh, it glides like butter. And the nibs are great. So this one happens to be a broad nib. This one is the demonstrator version, clearly. But all their nibs write super smooth, nice and wet. They have a little bit of bounce depending on which model. Some models like the M800, for example, are stiffer, whereas like these ones I find have a little bit more bounce, even though they're steel. It's a little bit varied on that. But I've had 2 200s and they've both been a great experience. I had the Amethyst and then this one here. They're a little bit on the smaller side as well, so stacked up to a Platinum 3776. It's a little on the smaller side. It is all plastic, no metal components except for the stainless steel nib, so it's on the lighter side, but you can post them and it fits quite nicely there. This is a great entry into Pelican's brand. They are a very expensive brand, probably more expensive than they need to be, but you do get quality when you buy them. So this one is $152. There are a few that are like mainline that you can get all the time, and then there's a few that are special editions, such as this one, that they come out with, I think like 2 or 3 times a year. I don't quite remember how often, but it seems like every time I turn around there's a different special edition. So there's generally always something for you, which is great. And like I said, even though it's a steel nib, even though it's a little bit smaller, you get that piston fill, which is great if you only want to have a couple pens and you don't want to have to worry about inking them up all the time. And I really recommend that. Now the last one is a little bit different. So like the Pelican, it is another steel nib, and it's a relatively newer pen by an old company. So it's the Esterbrook SD. So this fountain pen is on the larger side, you know, comparatively so, and this isn't even their oversized pen. This is just their regular mainline pen. You get different finishes that you can choose from. It's got kind of like a pop, so like a pop lid, so that when you uncap it, it kind of pops off, because like the Platinum 3776, it does have a seal on the inside. I haven't tested it out like I have the Platinum, because they make no claims about being able to, like, you know, ink it up for years and then you're fine. It is a cartridge converter fountain pen. So it just takes a standard international, which is great, because the Platinum ones only take Platinum cartridges or converters. These ones are relatively new. The super dope thing about these is that it's a number 6 size nib, which means you can switch it out with any number 6 size nib that you have, be that like another Bach nib, Yovo nib, whatever. You can put any number 6 size nib in here. And if you want to, so the pen itself is $156, but if you want to, you can purchase a little adapter that will fit into this pen. So basically, it's like the little like feed that is underneath this plastic collar here, that allows you to use vintage nibs. How cool is that? So you can use a modern pen but a vintage nib, which solves a lot of the problems that people are starting to run into with vintage pens, because anything that's super old is going to need some love and repair and maintenance. This doesn't really, and you can basically completely disassemble it, clean it out really well, with no fear of anything like kind of breaking or anything like that. So I think that that's super, super cool. Off the top of my head, I don't remember how expensive the adapter is. I think to get the adapter plus the nib is an additional $70 something, which would put you a little over $200 for it. But it's not something that you have to do. It's not something that you have to do right away. You can do it as you continue to get more and more into the hobby and just see what you like. But I think that the fact that you have that option is very cool, and you don't have that option with any of the other pens that I've mentioned here today. You can't switch out any of the other nibs, except for now the Lamy 2000. Surprise, surprise, they've now started selling the nibs individually. I don't know if it's something that I would necessarily recommend, unlike the beginner one that I have, where you know, the Lamy Safari, I recommend getting it because you can switch out the nibs relatively easily, because the nibs themselves are almost the same price as the pens. So I don't know how worth it that is, but the option is there. So that is my 5 recommended mid-range fountain pens. We got the Lamy 2000, the Platinum Century 3776, we got the Pilot Custom 74, the Pelican M200, and the Esterbrook SD. But what do you guys think? I know that there are tons more that fits in this category. For example, I know a lot of you are going to mention the Pilot Decimo and or the Pilot Capless, or the Vanishing Point, or whatever you want to call it. There are multiple variations of that depending on where you buy them. I did not put this in the list just because of the controversial clip. Some people love that it's there. Some people hate that it's there. solely depends on your grip. And to be honest, I use my 5 way more than I use this. I have had several other Pilot Vanishing Points that I have since sold because I just don't use them. They're great pens, they're just not really for me. I haven't yet been able to let this one go because it's just so pretty. It is just so pretty. So I basically just keep this to use it maybe once a year and look at, which isn't the way that you should do it. You should use your pens. Pens aren't really investments. Use them. So yeah, but it's just so pretty. So so that's my top 5. Let me know what yours are. Feel free to comment on each other's lists about what you like, what you don't like, all that kind of stuff. Stay friendly. You know, hit that like button if you liked it. Hit the subscribe button because I got more coming up. The next video is going to be the high end, which is in and around the 500 to, no, the mid to high. That's right. Whew. See, I'm filming these back to back, guys. The mid to high range, so up to $500 is going to be next, and then I got the $500 to $1,500 one coming up after that, and then we really party with the absurdity of fountain pens, which, spoiler, one of them is well over $1 million. So, guys, I'll see you later. Have fun, and bye.